Man, I'll tell you what, my name is Peter. First off, I'm the pastor here at Hope City, and so glad that you're able to join us this morning. I am nursing a cup of tea up here, so I may grab this a little bit more than I typically do on a Sunday morning. It was about 24 hours ago that I thought maybe that was the moment I was going to meet the Lord. I got a cold, apparently. And so, the funny story is that I have sinus infection issues pretty frequently, and so I've kind of learned to deal with that. But this was one of those kind of, perfect storms that comes every, blue moon or whatever that even is. And so I went down like hard and fast. And yesterday I woke up and we tried to nurse myself back to health, and wouldn't you know that God has such a great sense of humor that he always speaks through my kids. And Grace looks over at me and she's like, because I had told her, I was like, man, there was this period in the middle of the night where I was like, maybe I should call like a doctor, like an ER doc, like maybe head down there, whatever, I can't breathe, all this kind of stuff. And she was like, Dad, wouldn't that be so funny? Like if all that you got there, they just said, oh, you've got a cold, right? Like, and there I was like, you're grounded, like get out of here, right? I'm in pain, come on. So anyway, this morning, if I didn't high-five you, handshake, and hug you, it's only because I love you and I don't want to share whatever it is I have. So we are glad that you're here. But in order to get ready for Thanksgiving, about 2 weeks ago, I made some delicious cranberry chutney. Everybody say chutney. It's such a fun word to say, right? So this is the cranberry chutney I made. It's a terrible picture, but I was getting ready, just totally getting ready for Thanksgiving. Got to get warmed up, get in the groove. And then last Sunday night, so one of my Connect groups, we met up for Friendsgiving. And so we had a turkey dinner that looked something similar to this, maybe not quite as Martha Stewart, but it still tasted just as good, I promise you that. We had turkey, mashed potatoes, the whole thing. There was this incredible corn casserole that was like spicy and delicious, all in the same thing. There was biscuits, Brussels sprouts, salad. I mean, come on, this was amazing. There was just so much food that after the main meal, we kind of push back away from the table, and you're like, oh. And then what do? You look over at the countertop right there, and you're like, wait, we got to do dessert too? Like, that's coming next. And so we did what only a good, responsible human being would do, and we had a bite of everything. So we all sampled a little bit more of this dessert, maybe 1 or 2 bites. But it's not hard to say that by the end of that meal, we were fully fed up. Fully fed up. This is the best picture to describe how I felt going into the meal. This is me, just kind of swimming along, feeling good, feeling, kind of slender and sleek-ish. And then, after the meal, I promise you, this is me. I'm like, poof, I'm floating to the surface, done, right? Ladies, I get yoga pants now. I understand why you would do that. Men, we need, come on, something. Somebody design something, I don't know when sweatpants are going to be culturally acceptable for men to wear, but I think it's probably coming soon, maybe in 2 weeks for Thanksgiving. But here's the deal. We've all had times when we have been just utterly fed up. This might describe or define the way that you feel emotionally. You're just emotionally fed up. You are relationally fed up, or you just have too much that you can handle. See, it's not just limited to food. It's not limited to anything, right? We've been fed up at work. You've been fed up at Publix, right? Who's waited to get something at Publix in the deli counter? And you're like, come on, people, this century, what you just cut is no longer, you can't eat it anymore. It's expired, right? We've been fed up with our kids. I love this meme. I saw this week. Somebody put it up. Hey, I have three kids, so preparing a healthy meal is a challenge some mornings. The friend kind of looks down their nose. You should meal prep at night to make things easier. Oh, wait, did I forget to tell you that they live there too at night, right? Come on. We understand what it means to be fed up. We can be fed up with our neighbors, the ones that always park in front of the house or never mow the lawn or, just, we got to get real. We need to be honest. We're at church, right? We can be honest here. The holidays are coming, everybody. Okay? Let me give you a little PSA right now. 2 weeks until Thanksgiving is here. 6 until Christmas is here. By the way, they come in that order. So all of you who are trying to set up your Christmas trees already, come on, there's a process, due process, and we'll figure it out. You can hold off a little bit longer. But some of you have already started thinking. You've already started thinking this. How am I going to survive this holiday? How am I going to do it? How am I going to survive the holiday season, right? You've got that judgy uncle that can't help but talk politics all day long, right? You got the brother that knows it all. You have the sister who's like looking down her nose at the way that you parent. You have that in-law who is constantly trying to impress everybody else. He's just like running from place to place, showing off, right? And you're like, dude, I'm fed up enough with this stuff, right? I've had enough. Isn't it odd that the people that we're supposed to love the most are often the hardest to love? It's crazy. And we're coming into that season. We're coming into that time when you're going to be around more and more people. How do you love those people that you're fed up with? You know, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to get ready for your family. We're going to get ready for those holiday gatherings that are going to push you over the edge. We're going to get ready to fight the feeling of being fed up. In fact, I want to invite you to Romans chapter 12. We're going to consider this a spiritual CrossFit for your relationships as we gear up for this holiday season. Paul writes a book to the church in Rome, encouraging them on how to behave and how to deal with people that are hard to deal with. So for the next 3 weeks, we're going to feast on Romans chapter 12. We're going to just stay in Romans chapter 12 for the duration of this series, and that's found on page 775 in the Bibles around you. You can open your Bible if you brought it with you this morning or follow along on the screen today. But if you're looking for a place to start reading in your Bible, I would encourage you, just plant yourself in Romans 12 for the next several weeks. You can read it every day. It's short. You can memorize most of it, I would imagine. But I would encourage you, find some time to get into these words. So, Paul is dealing with us and dealing with his readers, and he's saying, here's how you're to love people that are hard to love. He jumps right in, and he does this by reminding us of something very important, something that he is assuming that everybody in the room already knows. In fact, we've already talked about it. We've said it, that there are people that you know you're supposed to love that are incredibly difficult to love. And Paul lays this out for us when he says in verse 9, he says, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. But love must be sincere. He says that it has to be sincere. Literally what his words in the Greek would have been was, love must be without hypocrisy. We've translated it to, it must be sincere, but his words would have been, love must be without hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is that gap between who you show you are and who you really are. It's the person that you put on in the morning, and then it's like when you take all the makeup off and you get into the oversized PJs and you're like, that's who I really am, right? Like it's that representing yourself to be better than you truly are. Hypocrisy it has no place with love. There's no place for us to pretend. See, the harder it is to love someone, the more intentional that you and I have to be in loving that person. This is the paradox. This is the challenge of this entire series, really, is that the person that is hardest to love, you and I have to do more in order to love them. It's crazy. Another way of putting this is that you and I, we must love sincerely. And this is kind of Paul's big idea. It can't be fake. Too many people, I think, spend their time living life in a way where they make believe. Like they play make believe with love. Like, I'm going to love this person, or I'm going to love those people at work, but all they're doing is just kind of putting on a big smile, waving, hugging, high-fiving, and then when they walk away, they're like, when were they ever going to leave, right? It's like, you got to go. See, oftentimes, the measure of your love and of my love is actually the measure of our willingness to be inconvenienced. Let me say it this way. Your willingness to be inconvenienced is the measure or the depth of your love. Look at the love of a mother, right? You see, this is a perfect picture of every mom in this room, because this has happened, or it will happen. Maybe even tonight if you're lucky, right? Like there's this, you're totally sleeping, right? You're in that REM, your eyes are going back and forth, all creepy, and then your kid just slinks into your room, and they just are like hovering over you, right? And their little laser beam eyes is what wakes you up, and you're like, yeah, like you just kind of almost jump out of your skin because they're there. They shouldn't be there. And what does the mom do, right? Like the little kid has this blankie, and you can see that they just say, I wet the bed. And what happens every single time? Mom slings her legs over the bed, hugs the kid, says, it's going to be okay, pats him on the back. Let's go. Let's get you cleaned up. Goes to the closet, gets new sheets out, makes the bed up, washes the kid, puts the kid back in bed, tucks him in, and finally heads back to bed. I've seen my wife Tiffany do this many, many times. Correction, I've heard about it in the morning. But I know it, that moms are incredible. The way that you love your kids is totally sincere. Paul says that love must be sincere, it must be genuine, it cannot be hypocritical. Because a hypocritical love is one that says, I will love you so long as I get something in return. I will love you if you love me. But all of that hinges on the fact that you are going to act loving towards me, and then I will act loving towards you. See, it is possible. It's possible for you to use the term love in a very unloving way. Which is why some of you in this room have a hard time loving people. Because you were witness to somebody who said and did things in the name of love that hurt, that have scarred, and that have kept you from really, truly understanding what love is. And I hope that throughout this series that you are able to be free from that and to grow in your experience of what it means to love. See, love that says, I'll love you if, or love that says, I'll love you when, really isn't love. That's called manipulation, which is why Paul says that we have to hate what is evil, manipulation. We have to cling to what is good. We have to be sincere in our love. So let me ask you a question right now, just kind of off, right at the top. What prevents you from loving people sincerely? What is that thing that actually pushes back against your ability to love people sincerely? What is that? See, I want you to think about that throughout the duration of this morning, because I believe that love is like the circulatory system of your spiritual body. Your soul can only be as healthy as your love is. Just right now, my body, your body, our hearts are pumping blood, oxygenated blood to the furthest capillaries in my fingertips all the way down to my feet so that my body remains healthy and oxygenated to continue to operate properly. Love is that system that you can't say, oh, I've got this great love for God, and yet we don't love other people. What keeps you from loving people well? See, if we're going to get serious about loving sincerely, then we need to figure out what it takes to love and have a sincere love. Which is awesome because Paul gives us these exact next steps. He gives us 3 things this morning that he says to do in order to grow in our sincerity of love. One of the first things that he says is that we need to commit yourself to love. That it's got to be something that you commit to. It's not just like you can pick and choose when this applies. You can't say, oh, it's this person, but not that person, or this day, but not that day. It either applies none of the time, or it applies all of the time. There's no in between. Look with me at verse 10. Verse 10, it says, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourself. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. Devote yourself to one another, he says. He says, just get after it. Be committed. Paul gets really practical here. Because some of us are like, well, love is kind of nebulous. I don't really know what to do with that. Now, Paul's like, here's what it is. You want practical? I'll give you practical. We can't leave love just as a principle, right? You can't just think about love up here in your head and not have it work its way out of your heart and your hands and your mouth. Love has to be more than just head knowledge. See, it's about what you feel, but also what you do and what you say. This is why the first step to sincere love is that you have to commit yourself to loving other people, to honoring others above yourself, to be putting other people in front of you. This is why you'll never hear me talk negatively about my wife, Tiffany. It's not going to happen because I want to honor her above myself. In fact, if I'm being totally honest, I can't say you'll never hear me, but I will do my very best not to. Friday is my day off, and it's really cool because we get to send our kids to school, and then Tiffany and I get to spend the day together. And so this Friday we were together, and I'm going to blame it on being sick, but it's probably just being a man. And so we were checking out at a store, and I try and like have some banter with the clerks because I remember those days. That's not always the most fun job. And so I also play a game with toll booth collectors. This is free. This has nothing to do with anything. But try this, right? Try this. Next time you're at a toll booth and you got to get change, see how long you can captivate their attention. Like, how long of a conversation can you have before they're like, okay, go. It's time to go, right? That's a fun game that I get to play. But anyway, so I was at this, I was checking out at the register, and I made some kind of joke. I was like, oh, she's so impatient. Like, look at blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me, and I could tell instantly that I had hurt her in public, in front of somebody that we don't know, where I was just trying to make light of the situation, and because she was paying cash, and it just took time, whatever. And afterwards, I really felt terrible, because you'll hear me up here. I'll always make fun of myself. I'll never make fun of her. I do a lot of dumb stuff, and I have no problem telling you about my dumb stuff. But this was a moment where, like, I messed up. I didn't honor her above myself. I put myself above her in that situation, and it made her feel below me. Guys, we have to be careful of that stuff. Men, you have to be careful with your wives. Be careful with your daughters. This stuff matters. This is what it means to practically love another person. Paul says, never be lacking in zeal. Well, I don't use the word zeal a whole lot, very frequently, but he's saying never be lacking. Never be, you have to be diligent in loving other people. This contributes to a sincere love. Even when it's hard, keep going. And then he ends with, like, don't forget why you're doing this. Why are you loving other people? He says that keep your spiritual fervor, keep that thing in your heart going bright, burning bright, and that we're serving the Lord. That whatever it is, whoever it is that you're loving, it's not about you. It's about serving God. That person that you are thinking of right now that you need to love or you don't really want to love, you're doing it not because it makes you feel good, but because it's honoring God. It's serving the Lord. Keep your spiritual fervor up. In 1 John 4:19 through 21, it says this. I absolutely love this verse. It says, we love because he first loved us. You and I only know what love even is because God loved us. Love is a learned behavior. Anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, that person's a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen. And God's given us this commandment. Whoever loves God must love his brother. The greatest commandment is wrapped up right here. Whoever loves God must also love his brother. We only know what love is because of the way that God has loved us, which may be why love is so hard to absorb and understand, because our wiring has been distorted by things of the past. We talked about that. This afternoon in my neighborhood, we're throwing a block party for our entire neighborhood. Our cul-de-sac kind of got together. Amy and Chris, they're my neighbors, and after that last series, Backyard Gospel, they were like, hey, we should do something for our neighborhood. And Amy came up with the idea of having a block party. I said, yeah, let's do it. Tiffany and I jumped on board. Amy and Chris they bought all the hot dogs and hamburgers. Tiffany and I, rented this big slide for the neighborhood. I can't wait to see some of our geriatric neighbors going down that later today. That's partly why I got it. But we're shutting off our cul-de-sac, and we're literally just saying, come on. We invited every single person in our neighborhood to this event. Every person. It's only like 45 homes, but it has the potential to be an incredible day. There are people that got invited to this. The same guy that complained about my dog pooping in the backyard, he got invited. The neighbor that doesn't mow his lawn, he got invited. The couple that kind of parks in front of everyone else's house all the time, they got invited. Everyone got invited to this block party. Why? Why are we doing this? We went door to door inviting everybody, and I was shocked how many people said, oh, I've always wanted to do something like this. It'll be great to get to know one another. Here's why we're doing this. Here's why Tiffany and I, we made a commitment when we moved into this neighborhood to say that we're going to love this neighborhood. We're going to commit ourselves to love. There's no agenda here. Like, it'd be great if they just leave this place knowing that there's a community here that cares about one another. In my men's connect group, my men's morning connect group, on the very first day, we decided that on November 17th, we're going to be serving at a woman's home from church, all together as a Connect group. Just going to do some help cleaning up the yard and getting things together and helping serve her. Why? Because we're committed to her in love. Our Connect group decided that we're going to do something together to love another person. What would it look like for you to commit yourself to loving somebody this week? Think about it. Who could that person even be, right? Like, what would it look like for you to challenge yourself to love another person in a way that is you've committed yourself to? See, once you commit yourself to love, Paul also tells us that there's something there you need to be reminded of. In verse 12, he says, "Be joyful in hope, be patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer." You know why Paul says this? Because it is so easy to say, I'm going to commit myself to loving other people and then not see any results for like weeks, months, years. It's easy to listen to a message like this, and I'm going to end this by challenging you to go love somebody, and you're going to go, you know what? Today's the day I'm going to do it. I'm going to go love somebody. And then you love them one day, and you love them a little bit less the next day, and then the next day when you see no change, you love them even less, and it ends up that you and I find ourselves in a position where we're like, I'm done. And Paul says, no. Wait, when you said commit yourself to love, what I really mean is that you need to be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Why does he say all these things? Be joyful in hope. Because hope is that thing that you haven't seen the outcome yet. Like you haven't seen the end result. You're hopeful that the Browns are going to win a game, right? You're hopeful that your team is going to bring home the championship. You're hopeful, but you need to be joyful in that hope. You can't get yourself so worn down in that hope of the thing that is coming. Be patient in affliction. Maybe we're bringing it back into that relationship. There's somebody in your family who is hard to love, and they just keep throwing daggers your way. They keep throwing kind of nasty comments or whatever, is happening. Be patient in the affliction. Don't give up on loving that person. Be faithful in prayer. Don't stop praying. Prayer is the backbone to see change, to see God move in some incredible ways. Be faithful in prayer. Paul is just laying this all out there in such a practical way, saying be persistent. Love persistently. Love other people persistently. Love cannot be pick and choose. It's the whole package. You might not like everything about someone, but when you choose to love them, you're making a decision to love a person through every moment, through the good, the bad, and the mediocre. When Tiffany and I moved to Florida, we moved from New Jersey down to Florida. We left all of her family behind, and my family lives in Texas. And we found this rhythm where we'll go to visit my family on Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving in Texas, and then we'll visit her family during just after Christmas before New Year's. So this is us last year, and it happened to be snowing while we were there, and so we were like, we got to take a picture of this, document this, because I don't even know that Leah remembered what snow looked like. And so it was, we were there for several days, and I got to the place where I started to get really fed up relationally. We can blame it on the snow, but it probably wasn't the snow. There was stuff that was happening around me in my environment there where Tiffany's dad started joking with her in a way that only a father can joke with a kid, right? Like, dads, we have the privilege, the honor of joking around with our kids and making them laugh, and we'll say things that we can get away with that nobody else can get away with. Well, one night when as I said, I was kind of relationally, emotionally fed up. I had it up to here, and her dad, my father-in-law, said something that just put me over the edge, and I lost it. Like, you can say whatever you want about me, but say something about my wife, and it's going to be hard. Like, we're going to have a relational conflict, right? And so I just shot back sarcastic right from the hip. I shot something, and it was in front of all of our family. And I'm telling you, I shut the room down. Like, I not only shut him up, I shut him down. And I can tell in that instant that things got tense pretty quick. And in the moment, I'll tell you, I'll be totally honest, I felt good about myself. I felt like, that's right. You're under my wing. right? Like, step aside, Pops. Again, it's one of those moments where then I looked in her face and she was like, and I knew it, that it was wrong. That I was like, just because I was fed up and I mouthed off, that I had done damage. So the next morning I woke up and I said, hey, Dad, can I talk to you real quick? We went into the other room, and I'll never forget that feeling of having to humble myself and say, I really blew it. What I said last night, I didn't mean, first off. But I know I hurt you. And it was in a matter of 5 minutes that we hugged, and he totally forgave me and understood, and he was like, I would never say anything about my daughter. Don't forget, I love her. I've loved her longer than you have. And I said, but I'm going to love her longer than you because you're on your way out, pal. And say that again and see what happens, right? But it was this moment where we made things right. And I'm telling you, I am so thankful for somebody that has loved me persistently in the midst of my junk, in the times when I don't get it right, that somebody's saying, no, it's okay, I'm going to love you persistently. It's probably why I have such a good relationship with my father-in-law. And I honor him. Even right now, I'll tell you that I'm grateful that God has provided him in my life. Have you ever had a moment like that, though? Where you've had that relational fracture? That somebody has said something, or you said something, or maybe it's gone unsaid, and it's felt like a break. Like there was just something that broke. Somebody did something. Love them persistently. Guys, this is for you and I. Maybe you shot from your hip, or you used your words to minimize your neighbor, or shut him down, or a family member, or a friend. Well, you too can love them persistently. And it starts with going back and asking for forgiveness. Or it starts by giving forgiveness, allowing somebody to be forgiven. See, don't wait for this stuff. Life is way too short. Life is just, it's a vapor. Your life and my life we will be at the end of it before you know it. And if we're not careful, we can carry all these grudges, all these things along with us to the very end of it, where we're like, man, I don't know why I don't even like that person, but I just don't like it. See, when you find yourself in the gap between relationships where they're somewhere between healthy and horrible, don't give up. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Do not give up on somebody else, because someone else never gave up on you. A sincere love is committed. It's persistent, but it's not a statue. It's steadfast, but it's not stagnant. The third thing that Paul says for us to define a sincere love and put that into practice is that love moves towards other people. That love actually moves towards other people. It's not stagnant and still. It's not motionless. Love moves. Paul identifies this for us in verse 13. He says, share with God's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. See, this is love in action. It's a love that acts. How do we know this? We have to share with those in need. How do you even know about what people have in need? It's because your ears are open to hear the needs around you. Your eyes see the needs in your neighborhood, which means that you and I have to actively open our ears and our eyes. You need to be aware of what's going on. People who are looking to develop a sincere love for people, they're constantly have their radar looking and scanning the room. They're constantly looking for who they can bless, who they can encourage. Who is the person in here that needs a hug? Who's this person, right? You need to be willing to respond to what's happening. See, people who are looking to develop a sincere love don't love issues. We don't love issues. The response to the issues that we see is how we sincerely love people. At Hope City, we love people, not issues. You'll remember this picture right here. This was from Easter of this past year when we collected socks and underwear for the Twig. They're a local nonprofit that serves the foster care initiatives around our city. And we collected hundreds of socks and underwear, new socks, new underwear, so that we could care for this next generation. And we have this increasing love of the next generation, but not just the next generation of kids that are here, but also the next generation of kids that find themselves in foster care. But I got to tell you, we don't love foster care. As a church, we don't love foster care. In fact, I would argue that we wish foster care didn't have a place in this world because every kid had a family to belong to. But we love the people who find themselves in foster care. And I can't wait to share with you guys this coming December. I got some things I can't wait to just tell you about what we're going to do this next year to help love and to care for those in foster care, specifically here in Sarasota County. But you'll hear more about that. Paul tells us to share with those in need, to go ahead and practice hospitality. Hospitality is a lost art form in our world. This is one of those things that we can easily lose sight of, and we slow down and where we just care for one another. It's partially why our cul-de-sac is hosting this block party, because we just need to be interested in caring for our neighbors. It's not enough to just talk about loving your neighbors, but how do we actually do that? I got this picture on Halloween from Matt and Paige Light. You have to forgive the Patriots chairs. But this was Halloween, but they're just out front grilling hot dogs and handing out hot dogs to whoever was going to stop by, giving candy, handing out hot dogs. And they're showing and practicing hospitality. Why? Because they're giving something to somebody that owes them. They don't owe them anything, right? But here's what I love. It's not going to be a stretch to think that a kid's going to walk by next year and go, hey, that's the house that gives out hot dogs. Can we go down that street? Like they're excited because they know that this is a place that's going to be hospitable in nature. A sincere love moves towards other people. We share with others and practice hospitality, which is why I'm excited to tell you guys about what we're doing here at Hope City this Christmas. We've got our outdoor Christmas movie night that's going to take place on December the 8th, right here in Tatum Ridge parking lot. We're going to host an outdoor movie for Tatum Ridge families and for Sarasota, quite honestly. This Christmas season, we're pulling out, whatever, all the stops we can. We're going to, rent an inflatable movie screen. We're going to have free hot dogs, free hamburgers, snow cones, some snacks and candy. We're doing this because we want to serve our city and we want to serve this school. We want to practice hospitality and to connect with our friends and neighbors through the love of Jesus. Hear me very clearly. We don't do this because we love events or because we love parties or because we love movies. We do this because we love Jesus and we love people. And we want people to take their next steps in their journey of faith to connect people with God. See, God the Father sent Jesus as a baby who grew into a man, and he pointed people to God. And then he stretched out his arms and he died on a cross for your sins and for mine that separated us from God. And Christmas is the start of that story. God making himself known to us. Why would we not do whatever we could to make that story known to others? So today I'm going to ask you to do two things. I'm going to ask you to invite everybody you know to join us at the Christmas movie night. We're going to have some invite cards on the way out. Our ushers are going to give you them on the way out. Bring them, hand them out to your friends and family. I'm going to ask you to share this Facebook event with your friends online. You can do this online after service today. Just go and share that event. Get the word out, because we want every person in Sarasota to know that they can come and join us to celebrate Christmas and hear the good news of Jesus Christ. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is to serve. Would you serve at this event on December 8th? It's a Saturday night. Just come. Maybe you're going to be handing out snow cones. Maybe you'll be, just kind of welcoming people. There are opportunities for you to literally practice hospitality in a parking lot, to be the hands and feet of Jesus here in Sarasota. Hope City, will you help me? Will you help us practice hospitality this Christmas season? Right outside at the Next Steps booth, Jen Ruffin will be there. You can ask her any more information about this. And then later this afternoon, you should be looking for an email from me, because reminding you of ways that you can invite your friends and ways that you can serve. See, we're serious about sincerely loving our city. We say that we're for Sarasota, but don't let your love or our love of the city prevent you from loving what's right in front of your face. It's easy to love people from a distance, but what about those people that are up close and personal? We're headed into a season where you're going to be tempted to be fed up. You're going to be tempted to just push everybody away and just tell them all what you're really thinking. What if this year you went in with a plan? Not just a bunch of good ideas, But what if you came in with God's idea for interacting with those around you? Who do you need to love with more sincerity? Like, write it down. Write it on your notes. I challenge you. Who is that one person that you need to love with more sincerity? See, maybe you are just so fed up. Maybe you've had it. As I've been talking, there's probably somebody who's come to your mind. Someone who either frustrates you or maybe you're nervous to see this year. Maybe over this past year, there's actually been a relational fracture in your world, in your relationships. What if instead of being broken or bound by your brokenness, you could experience freedom in every relationship that you have? Because I believe that God wants us to have healthy relationships. But God wants you and I to have the most important, the healthiest of all relationships with Him. So how is your relationship with God? Maybe you're fed up with Him. Maybe this morning, you're just fed up with God. And you're like, you know what? This is the last Sunday that I'm coming to church. Or I'm going to give it a chance, but I have had it up to here. Because I've had it with religion. Well, the good news is that God's fed up with religion too. In fact, God was fed up with our relationship with Him too. Crazy, right? Like you might feel like, oh, it's this one-sided thing. No. It's a mutual feeling. Why? Because the Bible tells us that every single person has sinned. Every single person has done something that living life on their own for their own. It's putting your needs ahead of everybody else's needs. And that sin, that brokenness in your world has fractured your relationship with God. That relationship that you had with God, that God intended for us to have, was broken. And sin did that. But God had a plan. He was fed up with that kind of relationship. He said, that is not good enough. And so He put this salvation plan into play, this relational plan. Paul tells us that our sin is like a cancer, that it slowly eats away at your soul until we're dead inside. And yet God chose to save us from this cancer, from the cancer of our soul. And the way that He did that was through His Son, Jesus. It was through forgiveness. God sent His Son, Jesus, to die for you and for me, to die for that sin, that brokenness in my life and in yours. Even while we were choosing to sin, Jesus still chose us. And all you need to do in order to have that relationship put back together is to look to Christ. We need to place our faith in Christ today. See, the best way for you to live your life is in a way that is trusting God in all things. Trusting God with your relationships, trusting God with your finances, trusting God with your family. This morning, if you would identify yourself as somebody who's fed up, maybe you've found yourself in a position where your relationship with God is a bit strained and it's a bit fractured. Well, I want to encourage you that today can be that day when it gets repaired. It gets fixed. And it is simple. It is as simple as just doing what I said, is just placing your faith in Christ. It's starting like where you do with every other situation, every other relational breakdown starts with where were you? What happened? What happened between us? God, I'm sorry that I've sinned against you. Asking for forgiveness, asking to make that right. God, I ask you to forgive me for the sins that I've been living in. And then just saying your intentions. My intention is to live my life in a way that removes as much friction, that removes as much sin, that removes as much of this as possible. To live in a way that I'm committed to you. And that can be your choice today. Maybe some of you would say that your relationship with God, this isn't a new thing, but your relationship with God it's not right where you want it. And this morning, you can repair that relationship by asking God to bring that back to life and saying, I'm going to recommit my life to you. And so this morning, as I close in prayer, even right now, I'm just going to ask you to make that decision. What is it? What decision do you need to make today?